Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson of drawing with Blizzard Ninja. And today we'll be learning how to draw anatomy. So for those of you who do not know what anatomy is, it's bodies. Like it's bodies, yes. The upper torso, the lower torso, that's basically anatomy. Okay, so when constructing anatomy, the things that you always have to keep in mind is shapes. Once again, yes, shapes. So you have to break down the anatomy into certain shapes. So commonly, there's always two shapes that the anatomy is drawn with. It's always the cube. In this instance, I'm going to represent it the square. I'm going to pull that out. Square, right? The second one is a circle. But then, of course, if we're going to use 3D methods, of course, it's always going to be the cube. For the square, we're going to have the cube for the square, and then we're going to have the the sphere for the circle. All right. So let me explain what this is all about. Let me just explain what that is all about. So now, what happens? What happens over here is you just have to picture your character in your mind. So when you're constructing a character, you just have to decide. You just have to think that okay, with this character, what do I want them to look like? You have to be creative. You have to flow. Flow with the dynamic and decide what is it that you want to construct. In most cases, how I'll show you in just a bit on how you can construct what you call this thing anatomy using those shapes that I just described. But in most cases, a lot of people are going to ask themselves certain questions that what is it that I want to construct? What is it that I want to draw? But then there are those individuals that just go with the flow. So first of all, one thing I'm going to teach you guys is gestures. Well, in this case, what you call this thing, you're going to need gestures in order for you to understand what's going on in terms of the anatomy. But right now, but before we get into that, let's start with something small, with something simple, quick. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna draw a character in a certain view. Just gonna draw a body in a certain view. Okay, so now this is gonna be my center line. This is my focal. This is my focal point. This area here. All right. Okay, I don't think you'll be able to see that. I'm just gonna indicate it with red quickly. So as you can see, that's my focal point. That's my other focal point. Right. So there we are. All right. So my body is facing that way. The upper and lower torso. Over here, it's just an example of what is it that I'm trying to get at. But then I'm just gonna add little arms to it. Just gonna add arms. Then of course with the legs. My bad. Okay, with the second leg, I'm gonna draw it in a different color. Just want you to get a certain idea on what is it that we are, and what is it that we're going for. So, as you can see, right, and then so now, what does this character look like? It looks like it looks like a man playing soccer. All right, let's use orange to indicate a football. Just gonna have a little ball over there. So you see what's going on, all right? All from constructing shapes. But then, of course, over here, I did not use correct proportioning for this figure. All right, because I was just making an example. But anyway, yes, this is it. And then, of course, if you want to add a head, you just add a head. And I know some of you are gonna be like, but then how come his head? How come he looks like he's kicking his head? It's not. It's just an example. But anyway, yeah. See, there's our gentleman over there playing soccer. But that's that's just basically the whole gist of it, right? Because you can see I put together a little character just by cobbling together some shapes. All right. So now, as I was saying, one thing to keep in mind when drawing characters is the proportioning, the size. So the upper torso should be the same size as the lower torso. Are you guys with me? So I'm gonna show you how to use both shapes, right? The square and the circle. The square and the circle. Okay, first before we go there, I just want to teach you a few things about shapes so that you guys can quickly understand. All right, so with shapes there's two types. There's dynamic and static. So I'm gonna draw a cube over here. All right, that's my cube, right? And this is my cube again. Okay, so as you can see, there's a difference between these two cubes. This one looks stationary, like it's not going anywhere, but this one looks like it's going down there. So that's the difference between static and dynamic shapes. So dynamic shapes is a sense of movement, that it's going somewhere. It goes back to this little character over here. As you can see, his legs, like the way he looks like he's going somewhere. Although yes, but then as you can see, with the way I constructed him, I I extruded these shapes going up. These ones I extruded them going down, as you can see. So yeah, I'll come back to this topic. All you should just know is that the static shapes and there's dynamic shapes. Dynamic shapes are shapes that have got movement. Static shapes are the shapes that are not going anywhere. They're just solid. So back to the topic of drawing anatomy. So now When drawing anatomy, one thing you have to always keep in mind is the upper torso, which is the upper body, should be the same size as the lower torso. I know I said that again, but I just wanted to make much more sense, you know. Now, there's so many ways to approach this. It's either you can draw it like this, you can draw it like this, because sometimes mostly what people use whenever they're drawing anatomy, they use a cone over here. But any which way is not a problem. It's all fine. Right? Other people use a cone, other people use cube. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever whenever you would like. And then okay, but anyway, let's before we go to the next one, let's focus over here first. So now this is how to approach this theory. So as you can see, this is my body. Of course, I'm just going to add some little appendages there. So when drawing anatomy, always make sure, this is how the proportioning works. So the upper torso and the lower torso have to be the same size. And then the upper arm should be the same size, should align together nicely with the upper torso. And the lower arms should align the same size as the lower torso. And then the legs should be the same height as the upper and lower torso combined. That's basically how to construct bodies. And I know over here I'm not really playing it as that or doing it as that. I'm just making an example to show you guys how to construct certain things. But always keep that in mind whenever you're drawing. That upper torso, we use a different color. Okay, so this and that. It's legs. I'm gonna write it at the top here. Legs. Legs. And then that and that should be the same. As you can see, that should be the same. So upper torso, lower torso should be the same height. Upper arm should be the same height as the upper torso, and lower arms have to be the same height as the upper torso, as the lower torso. But then the legs have to be the same as the two of them combined. So now that we've got that out of the way, now let me show you how different people construct anatomy. So now, since you already got that whole box thing out of the way, this is how you can construct anatomy again. So over here, you just follow your thoughts, whatever you have in your mind, you just let it guide you. All right. As you can see, I've got my little dynamic cube over there. I've got my little dynamic cube over there. So I'm gonna use green. Notice how I'm keeping the principle the same. Notice how I'm keeping the principle the same. And also, that's the front. That's the front. Now, let's make it even more interesting now. Let's make it much more interesting. So notice how over here, and this, with this drawing, the they're not follow the these lines are not following the same direction as in this drawing. It's facing that way and it's facing that way. So that's basically the key of drawing dynamic poses, because now all you have to, because you can introduce a twist to the shapes to create something much more interesting. Again, for you to play with it, what you can do is you can include some depth. You know, you don't always have to draw it exactly like this. You can literally add your own style to it, your own flavor, to make it your own thing. So you know what I mean. All right. So yeah, that's basically the gist of it. You can create depth like that. You can literally play around with this. So that's how to construct using squares. And now I'm gonna teach you guys how to construct using circles. So to construct using circles, you just have to picture one thing. A bag of flour. Let me explain. So we're gonna take your first circle and stack it up there. Take your second circle and stack it down here. And it's the same thing, guys. It's exactly the same thing that I discussed with you guys. It's the same thing, the same story. It's nothing hectic, it's just the same thing. It's the same thing because all you're doing is you just, instead of using squares, you're using circles, but you're doing the exact same thing that I was showing you guys. Or in case you guys were wondering which software I'm using Krita. It's an amazing software. It's a free open source software. It's basically the same as Photoshop, a lot similar to Photoshop. and Clip Studio. You can draw on it, you can animate on it, you can paint on it, you can literally do anything much on it. It's a very good software. So anyway, this is it, right? So what I meant by the bag of flour was you can just shape it like this. And already this bag of flour is a body. Already when you look at it, it's a body. Now let's play around with the bag of flour. I'm gonna lower the opacity and I'm gonna draw on a separate layer. So let's create something much more dynamic. Let's create something much more dynamic. As you can see, now there's a tug over there, a heavy tug because of this one. It's basically twisting. So now since there's a heavy tug, this one will not be like this. So now picture it like it's a type of animal. Right? Let me help you with that. Picture it like it's a type of animal. So now I'm gonna add some eyes over there. I'm gonna add a little mouth. And then I'm gonna add a tail over here. So now as you can see, the creature was originally looking there at the back. But now it turned its head this way, and now it's looking in this direction. It's looking at us in the screen. So you see what I mean? You can literally do anything with this method. You can create little creatures, little stuff. You can even create bodies. So now let's use the same sack of maize. And now we're gonna create a character that's side facing. So now that's the person's spinal cord line. This is the person's arm. Okay, for the arm, let me not use. So this is the spinal cord line. And then I'm gonna use another color for the arms. So the other arm is there. I'm gonna use this to indicate buttocks over there. So as you can see, we created our lady character over there who's facing this way. So now this is the center of her body. Right, the center of her body. And yeah, basically. But you guys basically get the gist of it. That's literally what it takes for you to learn how to draw anatomy. It's either you use squares or what you call this thing or circles. And yeah, the bag of flour method. That's what you use to basically construct anatomy. So that's literally the gist of it, guys. And then drawing what you call this thing, males and females. Right. I will dive deeper into this in a later stage, but for now, I'm just gonna give you the gist of it. I'm just gonna give you a little way to remember. So when it comes to drawing men, men have got much broader shoulders than women. So their shoulders are much wider. And then their torsos are much smaller. Like their waists are much smaller. Alright. This is a man. And then a woman, shoulders are much smaller, but then the waist is much bigger. It's much broader. So I'm gonna make an example. Alright, so now, so it's man, woman. Now let me explain. Let me show you. Okay, sorry about that. Oh yes, and notice what you call this thing. I'll teach this in the next lesson as well, but there's this thing called the opposing curves theory, where whenever you're drawing a certain shape, you oppose the curves to make it seem much more dynamic. But I will explain everything in a later episode for um dynamism and staticness. Over here, I was just in this lesson, I was just guys giving you a little brief on what is it about exactly. All right, so now here's our woman. Let me just cancel the arms completely, and then I'm just gonna head jump straight and draw the body, because you know sometimes the body is just gonna be much more quick and simple to explain. All right, so now this is gonna hug, and then this is just gonna spread out and go like that. No, it's gonna hug and spread out and go like that. That's basically a woman, you know. Shoulders over here, and then under the shoulders, you add the breasts. So you see, and then with the man, you just follow this contour line exactly the way it is, and then from here, that's when you build muscle. But you guys already see the difference. She's much more curvy. He's much more straight, built like a pole. Make the arms much more broader. But you guys get the gist of it, right? So that's how it is. So men is much more broader shoulders and narrower waist. Woman, narrower shoulders but broader waist. So yes, that's basically how to draw men and women. And then just like that, I will see you guys in the next one. Blizzard Ninjas signing out.